The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 28th chapter. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descending from heaven came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples he has been raised from the dead. And indeed, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The Gospel of the Lord. To say that this is a strange kind of Easter would be an understatement, and all of you would probably agree. All the things that you sort of anticipate about what Easter would be like is not going to be there this year. All those sort of festivities that happen. You won't be able to gather in your church community. You won't be able to put on your finest clothes and bring out the newest fashion that you wanted to display to other people. There probably won't be any community Easter egg hunts, and if there are, they'll be 6 feet apart and be easy to find the eggs because no one else will be hiding on you. There probably won't be any visits to the Easter Bunny at the mall. All of that kind of things that you're sort of expecting with Easter won't be there. And my guess that many of you won't be able to gather with your families or travel to see your families at other places. It will be an Easter with sort of an overcast, a pall sort of sitting over it, sort of a downer Easter than what you anticipate. Easter will be strange this year. Easter will be unlike any other. I have a friend who's retiring from parish ministry at the end of this year, and he said to me the other day that he never could have imagined that his very last Easter with his congregation was going to be virtual, that he would not have them in front of him and be able to share the sacrament with this community of people that he has served for almost 20 years. It's a strange kind of Easter. But maybe that's good for us. Maybe it's good for us to experience a strange kind of Easter, because my sense is that's how the first people, the first disciples of Jesus, experienced Easter, as a strange sort of event. When Mary and Mary went to the tomb, they had certain expectations of what would happen. They had watched the crucifixion from afar. They had seen Jesus brought down off the cross. They had seen him wrapped in the shroud. They had seen him laid in the tomb. They had seen the stone roll in front of him. And they're no dummies. They know what that means. It means that their friend, their beloved friend, the one whom they had followed for these number of years, the one whom they had trusted, the one whom they had counted for, was dead. That's what it meant. And they were pretty clear. The dead is dead. And so when they went on that Sabbath, on that Sunday morning, the first day of the week, the first day after the Sabbath was over, they were simply going to pay their respects, the way that many of us might walk through a cemetery to visit the grave of a loved one. There were no expectations. They simply were there. And in this case, they weren't even trying to figure out how to embalm the body. They were just going to see Jesus' grave to make sure it was okay. And then the strange stuff started happening. They get there, and there's an earthquake, and then the stone rolls away, and then an angel shows up, and then the guards fall over dead, and then the voice comes and says, "He's not here." And they're scratching their heads saying, "Where did he go? The rock was there. All of a sudden he's missing." And the angel simply says to him, "He has been raised from the dead." A strange message, something that they weren't anticipating. No one expected the resurrection. No one expected this to happen. They simply anticipated that their movement would die out, as so many had before. But Jesus, no, he wasn't here. In fact, he had been raised from the dead, and now he has an assignment. Tell the disciples, "Go, I will go ahead of you." And then as they're heading home, suddenly they run into Jesus, who sees them, greets them, and in their delight, they fall at his feet and worship him and acknowledge who he is. And Jesus' instructions are just the same as what the angel had said. Go, tell the disciples, and go to Galilee where I am going ahead of you. They must have been completely blown out of the water. This was not what they anticipated. This was not what they expected. They did not expect Jesus to be alive. But over time, a very short time, this story became their story. It is what they told again and again and again. It is what made the Jesus movement different. They did not have a dead leader. They had a living leader. One who had destroyed the powers of death, who had risen through the very enemy that all of us confront, in order that he might live and we might live with him. So when Peter begins to tell that story in Cornelius' household, Cornelius is one who is outside the community of the faithful. He is a Gentile. He's a Roman leader of an army. But he has come to understand some about Jesus. So Peter tells him the story and ends it with the reality that God raised Jesus from the dead, and that this is the news that empowers them and sends them forth. It is the news that empowers us and sends us forth. It is the word that dwells inside of us. It is the reality into which we are baptized in our death and raised with Christ. It is the new perspective on all things human. Christ was raised, and we will be raised with him. God's good news is that the power of death has been destroyed, and all the things that reek of death, all the destructive forces of the earth, no matter how strong they may seem now, do not have the last word. Oh, we're facing this crazy virus, and we've faced a virus before, and we'll face some virus down the road, and in the midst of it, we'll face all kinds of difficulties in our own lives. Death is not just confined to the coronavirus. People deal with death every day, and it hurts every time. But we, children of the resurrection, confront the powers of death with this truth: Christ is risen. Christ still rises, and the risen Christ destroys all the forces of darkness, even when it feels like that will never happen. Even when it feels like it's just one long dark tunnel. Christ goes ahead of us.